Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Sherwana Davis, and I'm a psychotherapist at the Georgia Mind Center. And I wanted just to share with you today just some information about kinship care. There's so many people in kinship care arrangements, and it can be very confusing. And I just want to make sure that people understand what it is and just some resources and things that are available to provide you with some support. All right, so let's get started. So just wanted to do a quick disclaimer here that this is just for educational purposes, and this is for informational purposes as well, and it's not intended to be used as any legal or medical or psychological advice. Although I strive to provide accurate general information, the information presented here is not a substitute for professional advice, and you should not solely rely on this information. Please consult with a licensed professional before making any psychiatric, psychological, professional, legal, instructional, financial, or tax-related decisions. So what is it? What is kinship care? We'll talk about it. We'll also explore the idea of generational trauma that often leads to circumstances where kinship care is necessary. We'll also discuss kinship care versus foster care versus adoption, support, and resources. So, what is kinship care? So, kinship care is care provided to a child by relatives or close family friends when the child's parents are unable to care for them. So this is available so that the child has some connection to the family. It is very different, you'll see, from the foster care system where there isn't kinship care available. And we'll also talk a little bit about adoption as well. Sometimes adoption occurs within as a result of kinship care. So we'll talk about that as well. So, kinship care versus foster care versus adoption. So, again, kinship care is where that child is being cared for by relatives or extended family members or close family friends. Foster care is temporary, right? It's the temporary placement of a child into the home of a certified foster parent that's approved by an entity, usually a government or social services agency. And so that is usually in place when there is the absence of family members to be able to care for that child. And then there is adoption. This is a permanent legal process where individuals or couples become the legal parent of a child, assuming all the parental rights and responsibilities. And sometimes a kinship care arrangement and sometimes even a foster care arrangement ends up in adoption when all avenues of reunification with that parent have been exhausted. So just wanted to provide the distinction between kinship care, foster care, and adoption. Take a look at this. We often hear about generational traumas that occur within families. The way that this pattern typically occurs is you have a mother or father or both who are parents to a child. And then those parents have their own unhealed traumas and different things that may be preventing them from parenting in an appropriate way. Those traumas, those experiences are then passed on to this child. And this child, because we learn how to parent from typically our parents, that child then transfers all of that experience of trauma and in ways, environments that was not healthy, they transfer all of that to their child. So you can see here the pattern of the mother and father initiating this trauma, and then that gets passed on to the child, and the child becomes a parent themselves, and then they pass that on to their child. There are options for healing. Ideally, that mother or father figure within that family or both, they are able to heal all of those traumas and learn how to parent appropriately. And then they can then transfer that experience onto their child, and that ultimately passes on to the child's child. Ideally, that's wonderful, but that's not always the way it works. And so sometimes you'll see, and I'm just using here as an example, that parent still has those trauma wounds, right? That's what you see here in red. And so they're unable to parent. So that child, the child of that parent, has the opportunity to heal those spaces of trauma. They may have to do it on their own because they're not necessarily getting support from their parent. So they may seek out services from a therapist and other people who can help them process that trauma. And that prevents them from passing on those traumas to their child. There's also the case where you have a situation where that parent, the originator of that trauma, and then the parent of the child's child is unable to parent. And so it requires kinship to step in to provide space for healing to occur and the repair of that trauma. And so that's where this notion of kinship care being an instrument of healing some of those wounds takes place. And so that's this last little diagram here where if you have that originating parent and the parent's parent unable to parent because of their own unhealed wounds, then that kinship care person takes on that responsibility of being able to repair some of those traumas that have occurred so that this child has a good life. However, kinship care is not easy. It is often a stressor because, unlike, and I'll just go back here, unlike these two areas where foster care and adoption, they typically take on those roles. They're expecting it. They invite it actually because they want to be a foster parent. They want to be an adoptive parent. And so they have time to prepare for this family structure that's about to happen to them. However, typically with kinship care, that's not always the case. What typically happens when someone becomes a kinship caregiver, that person is usually in an unexpected role. It's not something that they've trained for, like this foster parent or the adoptive parent. They may not even know it's coming. They could just get a call one day saying, "Hey, we have a relative of yours. Would you be able to take this relative in?" So it's usually surprising to them. And so that's why it becomes really important that these stressors are acknowledged, right? So there's an adjustment period because this unexpected person or persons, when it's a sibling group, has now entered their home. There can be financial strain because instead of their family structure looking the way it once did, they're now having to provide for the additional family members that they're giving care to. There's also emotional burdens that they may experience because they are now in that point of trying to support this child or children with the healing process and providing that safety and security that they need to thrive and flourish. There could be some legal complexities involved where there's some legal advice that's needed. So that also can put a strain and act as a stressor. There also could be a lack of support, right? Because typically the kinship care providers, it's unexpected for them. So they may not necessarily have a support system in place to support them. So the absence of that could be a stressor. And then there's also age and health concerns. So if you think about a grandparent or someone who was not thinking about taking on this role, now they're now in that position to have to take care of this child, and they may be managing their own health conditions and their aging conditions as well. So here's how to support yourself, or if you know of someone who is in a kinship care arrangement where they are the provider, here's some things that you can do to support them. You can help them, and you can do it yourself if you are the kinship care provider. You can prioritize your well being and peace of mind. It is so important that you don't get burned out in this role, that you are prioritizing your own mental well being so that you can then give your best to the children. Set boundaries focused on protection. So it can be very complex when you're in a kinship care arrangement because typically you're still involved with that child's parent. And depending on the arrangement with the social service agency or legal arrangement, there may or may not be a no contact rule in place. or a limited or structured contact rule in place. So being able to adhere to those boundaries is going to be essential. Reach out to trusted and safe people. So it's important that you are connecting with others who may be in a similar situation so that you can feel like you are not alone. Seek professional help. So seek out the help of a medical professional if you're having any health conditions, or a psychotherapist or psychiatrist for yourself and for the children involved if you need that extra set of support to help your family and to help the children, and of course to help yourself. And then there are support groups and agencies available online and in person. So seek those things out as well. I do also, if you're in the state of Georgia, I'm not in any way affiliated with our Department of Family and Children Services here in any way, but I found a really good resource on their website that I just wanted to bring your attention to. It's here. It's called the Kinship Care portal, and I just took a look through it, and it's very well done. It's very well organized. So if you're in Georgia, this is definitely something that you'd want to take a look at as well, because they provide just some good resources. They answer some frequently posed questions that people have about kinship care as well in that portal. So take a look at that, because there could be some additional resources out there to support you in this process so that you don't feel like you are alone. And if you're in a state outside of Georgia, there's probably other types of portals like this in your state that you want to take a look at and explore to find out what financial resources, what support groups, what medical resources, what types of psychiatric support systems are in place to be able to help you and your children. So I thank you for watching. If you have any comments or any resources that you found to be effective as a kinship care provider, just provide those in the comments. Someone else may benefit from those resources as well. We're all about sharing here. So please feel free to share anything that you may have. I thank you so much for watching my channel. If you like this information, feel free to subscribe for more information so that you also get notified. And I thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have an amazing day. Take care.